Spectra V3i. This is a 3-frequency unit, folks. This is a new flagship machine. Multi or single frequency operation with optimized waveforms. What's that mean? That means I can tell you that it's absolutely a single frequency unit. When I select 2.5 kilohertz, I'm only transmitting and receiving in 2.5 kilohertz. And I've optimized that waveform to do that. So I'm actually putting a little more power into the ground than I did with the 3 frequencies. Selectable frequency and soil modes. I can select normal frequency, normal soil, salt compensate frequency for the beach, defaults to salt soil. Or if I'm hunting in a park that's regularly fertilized and irrigated, I can hunt in normal mode with salt soil. Extends the tracking range. Selectable frequency, soil modes, full color display with a backlight. I want to tell you, this is not, people say that's DFX on steroids. There is nothing that compares to the technology in this machine. It's not built on anything. It's all new. So there's your, it comes up with a color display. Now, let's see what I can show you here. See my 3 green bars with a VDI of 83, 3 inches, and it says it's a quarter.
Analyze.
These are my camel humps. It's about 1 inch wide. The 2.5 kilohertz frequency is hitting the hardest.
Doing this conference.
Second hardest, third hardest. If I pinpoint, you can see down at the bottom, the green line, which is a 2.5, is hitting the hardest. You can see that the 7.5 is next, and that the 22.5 is the least.
That's great.
If I turn around and do the same thing on a nickel, notice that the 22.5 hits harder. So just by pinpointing, knowing which frequency hits the hardest, you can determine what you're looking at. Hear the tone, difference in tone. Plus 19, nickel. See all your bars lined up? So you've got a high confidence, it's at a nickel. Let's go to the dreaded bottle cap. Look, see that smearing?
Yeah,
Okay.
on the nickel, sir, is it different if you get a half of a pull tab? Those things always read as nickels to me. Half of a pull tab.
I got a whole one.
A half one reads nickel on there.
Well, this one reads 23. Okay. See how I've got one bar off?
Yeah.
They're not lined up. Now, let's take a look at a nickel. See how they're all lined up? That's a first dead giveaway.
Never noticed that.
Next dead giveaway. If we go to analyze mode, see how I got 2 and then that one little 2.5 kilohertz hates these things. See how I've got the 7.5 and the 22.5 way peaked? And then see the 2.5 at the bottom? Same thing. So you can sort these guys out pretty good.
Yeah. I'm learning.
The polar plot though seems to work better to me than that analyze.
It all depends on what you like.
You know,
It's
I've switched mine just to run on polar
absolutely
plot.
personal preference. No more, no less. Okay, now we go from that linear menu, we got a 6-block menu. Select your programs, your sensitivity, your audio, your discriminate, your frequency, or your ground tracking. You select a program. Let's say I want to go down to Salt Beach. That's all there is to it. Now, notice across the bottom of this display, we have available to us live controls. I can actually now say, I want to change my sensitivity. So I just go over to sensitivity, enter, and I change my sensitivity RX gain from 3 to 8. All there is to it. On the fly.
What's the difference when you put that down on deep silver now? What does that do?
Deep Silver?
Mhm.
Deep Silver is a 3 kilohertz program that runs with a 5 hertz filter and uses high-end VDIs, cuts out everything else.
It cuts out everything but the deep silver.
Yeah. If you look in your user's manual in the back about page 48 or so, they'll show you there's a row of all your VDI settings, and it shows you what's in and what's out. And pretty much you can tell by that what the program's used for, what it's good for. Okay, now it's already 20 after 12. Just let me tell you that Spectra has just a little over 168 to be specific, individual settings that you can use to tailor this machine to exactly the way you want to hunt, to exactly the environment that you want to hunt in, to exactly the coil size that you're using. This machine will even let you tell it, I've changed from the 10-inch DD coil to the 6x10-inch DD coil to keep your depth reading absolutely accurate.
Does that change itself, or do you have to?
There's a menu setting that you change.
Okay.
There's nothing that you could possibly want to change in this machine that if you don't like the color of your display, for example, let's see. There's your Deep Silver program. They've made changes during the demonstrations here. I'm trying to see what
It's a lot to learn.
that should have a.
It's got a cannonball in it. Keeps all the support.
All of them got the sunshine selected. But you can actually change your display formatting to whatever you want to see. If you want it amber, if you want it red, if you want it. We go into the expert menu. and we start at the top with the program, discrimination, sensitivity, audio, frequency, ground filtering, configuration, and information about your machine. If you go into the configuration menu, you can select up one of 5 languages: Spanish, Turkish, Russian, French,
So if
English.
you're looking for Spanish reals, you need to go to
Yeah.
Spanish.
I was waiting for something of that. I was waiting for that.
If you want to run, if you happen to be British or Canadian and want to run in metric units, you can run in metric.
Having enough trouble with the kind we got then.
Okay. Here's what I was going to demonstrate to you before. Here's your color theme. If you select, this one's defaulted to sunshine. There's pine. There's fireside. See the display change colors? There's dusk, chestnut. Custom, you can actually go in and change each one of these things that you want to change. From any place in the menu, you just pull the trigger. It applies it, you go back to hunt.
Never been there before.
No, I haven't used it.
So I like sunshine. It seems it's the brightest and the easiest for me to see.
You know, just one suggestion too, it comes preset on a backlighting of 20. You can turn that way down and save some of your battery life and run it on 10, and I don't see any difference.
That's a good tip. Here's another key feature of V3i. You can pair up your tone and your VDIs. If you want a nickel to sound like a quarter, you can make a nickel sound like a quarter. If you want everything above VDI 50 to sound the same tone, you can do that. If you want groups, I want from 0 to 10 to have a tone of 200. I want from 11 to 20 to have a tone of 210, and so on and so on and so on. You can set that. Conversely, if you really want to quiet your machine down, if you're a coin and jewelry hunter like me, I'm not interested in ferrous targets. So every VDI to the left of 0, which is all ferrous, I reject and I turn the tone off. So not only do I not see it, I don't hear it, it doesn't exist. So you could walk around an old house with that machine set up like that, and the only thing you'll hear are your good targets. You can select a loop for depth accuracy. I showed you the live controls for on-the-fly adjustments, and you can put whatever live controls that you want, that you use the most, on your display. They're not factory preset. If you want to put sensitivity only, that's the only thing you want to mess with, just put up sensitivity. If you like to change your tracking, if you like to change your filters, if you like to change your backlight, you can put all those on there. And you can set them up so you go to the end and stop, or you can set them so they continuously wrap around for you. This machine comes with an on-board reference manual. And it's really good. If you're in the field and you forget about how something works,
Saved me a few times. Like to get your headphones working on a different channel.
let's say sensitivity. If I hit zoom on sensitivity, I get a submenu that shows me how much signal and how much noise I've got. And I'm looking at RX gain. And what is that? I hold menu, zoom, and there's RX gain. It actually tells you what it is, what it's for. So you've got your book in the field with you, and it covers every feature in the machine
My goodness.
in 5 languages. So if while you're hunting you want to take a Spanish lesson while you're resting, you can sit and read your machine in Spanish. Or Russian or Turkish.
That's what I might have been reading mine in, I don't know.
You've been reading the.
Question before you skip over the coils there. I noticed on DFX you had an 8 by 14 inch coil listed, which I was not familiar with, and I don't see it there.
The 8 by 14 inch coil is not made in a deep null version. So, I don't recommend anything but the deep null coils. Now, all the coils that Whites are making right now are deep null coils, you know, and they'll work fine on the E-series machines. But if you take a non-deep null coil, just a standard coil, and put it on one of these and crank up transmit boost, it doesn't have the null, the quality, the Q of the coil
Right.
is not high enough. It'll actually overload.
Okay.
Okay?
George, on your high pro in there, when you turn the switch forward, you got those arrows that shoot up, the different colors.
Yeah.
Does that correspond to what your target should be in the ground? If it's blue, you know, like a nickel or red or
That's called the polar plot.
the polar plot, yeah.
Yeah. And what the polar plot
That's
is showing you is the raw, non-normalized phase angle for each frequency. As long as it's in the upper quadrant
Okay.
of VDIs, it's generally pretty good. When you start seeing loops down in the lower quadrant on the left,
Yeah.
it's generally ferrous.
It'll save you from digging a lot of cans and tape.
Yeah. Okay. This is the heaviest of the E-series machines at 4.2 pounds. So you're getting all this in a 4-pound package. Again, batteries from here will work in all those other machines. The batteries from all those machines will work in here. Absolutely simple. Even though there's 168 individual features in this particular unit, folks that spend about 2 weeks really getting familiar with this, it's very, very, very user-friendly. It's very intuitive. If you want to change VDIs, what do VDIs operate with? Discrimination. So where would you go to change your VDIs? Discrimination. Guess what's in there? Discrimination. If you want to change something to do with your search mode, what do you change? You go to live search screen and change it. If you want to change something in your pinpoint mode, you go to the pinpoint screen and change it. For all your analyze features, if you say, I want to make sure I'm analyzing exactly the way that I found it, you just check one box, match search, and the machine will set for you all the same sweep speeds, all the same VDIs, everything that the machine's used in the search mode, it will use for the analysis modes. So the analysis modes in here will help you ID targets. Like the candle humps that I showed you will give you target width and show you which frequency's hitting the hardest. The polar plots you heard us talk about actually show you the frequency response of a target versus the target material. It's really good for sorting out bottle caps and other ferrous stuff. It'll keep you from digging a lot of really deep things, especially if you're a relic hunter. There's a prospect mode in there. You ever try that?
Well, I have tried it once.
The moving display. You can walk along and you can actually watch the ground signature move under the coil, go across the display. Remember on MXT in the prospecting mode we talked about follow the black sand? By watching the VDI numbers, this will actually give you a profile of the ground as you're walking along. Again, there's just, you know, the only way to really appreciate this machine is to get one in your hand with somebody like one of the guys here from Kellyco and let them demonstrate it to you. A good demo on this machine will take 45 minutes just by itself. I have a 2-hour presentation that I give just on this machine. There's just nothing like it on the planet, period.
Exact same thing as the Vision, only they had to change the name, right?
Yeah, the Vision name was.
I have the Vision.
Now, there's differences between V3 and V3i. V3 is not made anymore. V3i, the I stands for International. They made a couple of mechanical changes in here. They added the salt mode, and they removed the recommended RX gain.
I
wasn't-
have the upgrade in mind.
You do.
They got
Okay.
rid of just the coin program too, didn't they?
Nope, the coin program is still in the library. You just
Oh.
have to go pull it out of the
Oh, okay.
library.
I noticed I had mine upgraded. I sent mine had upgraded, and I come back and I noticed that was gone.
Yeah, it's in the library, but
Okay.
again, just like DFX, the only difference between the coin program and the coin and jewelry program is the VDI setting.
Mhm.
So there was no need to have them both.
Okay.
If you wanted to make them one for yourself, go ahead. I don't know anybody that's ever maxed out how many programs this thing will hold. I do know that I was on the field test team, and for lack of something better to do, I just kept saving a copy of the program, and I quit at 125. I saved 125 copies of a program that I changed something in every setting area.
George, a question, maybe it might be in the minds of the audience. So if they bought a V3 and they went ahead through the regions and got their updates, they have a V3i.
Correct.
So I just want to make with all the changes and so forth.
That's-
Just want to make sure that everybody.
Get it done?
To have the V3i changed, absolutely, totally different machine, absolutely. Quieter, deeper, more flexible.
Yeah, George, I bought a V3 here, and I took it up to Freeport. I drove up and visited
John?
John, and they've turned it into a V3i.
Yep.
So that's the same as this one here then?
Absolutely.
Now, if new programs come along, can they reprogram them again, like V3i or whatever?
Only at the factory, but right now, to the best of my knowledge, there are no updates,
Yeah,
no update scheduled.
it's an awesome machine.
I think the only thing that we lost is to be able to communicate between two.
Oh, the dongle?
I was just getting ready to ask
Yeah.
you about that. How hard is it to save a program onto a PC or between machines
do
or
it.
anything?
Can't.
Can't.
Can't do it.
Proprietary.
So the only thing you can do is save your setups as a program on your machine.
Exactly.
In your machine.
And then if
Exactly.
you lose your battery, you still got it saved into flash or something?
10 years.
10 years.
You can let this set for 10 years without a battery in it, and it will still be good.
Is that retained in RAM or flash or something? Probably flash, right?
It's EEPROM.
EEPROM.
The neat thing about this is when you change your factory settings in this, there's actually a non-volatile memory section that the running program is in.
Mhm.
You've got the running program, you've got your saved programs, your custom programs,
And the
then
default.
you've got the library programs, okay?
That never changed, okay.
You can keep making changes to this thing until you get it exactly the way you want it. Turn it off, turn it on, change the batteries, do whatever you want to do. And then at the end of the day, you save it. You can start with a factory coin and jewelry program and work with it for 2 weeks until you get it the way you want it, and then save it.
DFX you can do.
And if you absolutely get confused, get lost, I can't stand this anymore, you just go in and restore the program. The factory programs are safe. You can't harm them, you can't hurt them. If you made 100 changes to the factory coin and jewelry program, you simply go in and say program, restore, where, from the library, load, poof, your program's right back to where it was the day it came out of the box. That's the good news. The bad news is, if you didn't somewhere along the line save a copy of what you were doing, you get to do it all again.
When you save your own program, does it show up in the quick menu of
Absolutely.
programs? Okay. I haven't done
Absolutely.
that yet.
Not only that, but if you save your program and you say, okay, that's what I want to use, you can go into the menu and put your programs up at the top. So you
Okay.
don't have to sort through. If you have 2 copies of the coin and jewelry program, it'll put a plus behind it that says, I have 2 of these. If you've changed the coin and jewelry program, but you haven't saved it, it'll put a little triangle in front of it for you to say, you're running the factory coin and jewelry program with changes. If you save Bob's program and you change it but don't save it, it'll put a triangle in front of that too. It's got a whole librarian function built into the machine that keeps track of your changes.
Why did they take away the ability to transfer from one unit to another?
Just couldn't get it to work the way we wanted it to work.
Oh, okay. Seemed like a neat idea.
Well, there's some other folks that have it, and when you talk to them, they say, well, I don't use it that much. The back and forth to one guy to the next, once you get used to working with Spectra, here's the biggest tip I want to give you about Spectra. Start with coin and jewelry program, okay? Learn that program, every setting in it, and then make all your changes to the coin and jewelry program. If you gave me the Relic program right now, I can start with coin and jewelry program and turn it into a Relic program in 5 minutes flat. The majority of your program changes are made to either accommodate what target group you want to bring in, what targets you want to see, what you don't want to see, or the type of area you're going to hunt. And I'm talking gross areas. I want to hunt the beach. I want to hunt the battlefield. I want to hunt the schoolyard. So if you set up a Relic program, you start with coin and jewelry, you turn on all the options that you like to hunt with, right? Let's go back one step. You start with coin and jewelry and you set up your coin and jewelry program the way you want to hunt with it. You'll turn VCO on, you'll turn tone ID on, you'll turn ratchet pinpointing off, you'll turn modulation off, you'll set up the coil size you're going to use. You'll set up your VDI range the way you want it, your tone pairing the way you want it, and you'll save it, okay? Now what's the difference between hunting coins and hunting bullets?
Bullets are lead usually.
Okay? Your coin and jewelry program is already bringing in lead, isn't it? You might want to consider turning on the all metal channel or mixed mode. Other than that, what else might you want to change? Well, you might be out in some farmer's field and he's fertilized that thing for the last 50 years, so there's a lot of alkali in it, which is conductive, just like the beach. So you may want to consider changing your ground filter. Bump it up one. Or you may want to consider standing out there and saying, boy, this is really noisy, I'm going to go into beach mode. Sol comp, quiet it down. But you don't have to save that because you may be somewhere else. 90% of your settings, when it comes right down to it, are going to be identical.
I gotcha. Oh, what is that 10 hertz bandpass and rejection and stuff like that used for? You know,
The filters?
and the filters.
Filters remove changes in the ground. Okay? A bandpass filter is better for high EMI or fast changing ground. The frequencies, the slower the ground changes, the lower the frequency filter you use. So if you're in pretty sweet ground, like we have here in Florida, run the 5 or the 7.5 hertz filter.
Okay.
Okay, any questions on Spectra V3i?
Oh, I got a question. How waterproof are they for rain? Not submerged, but
No
for out in the
problem.
rain?
These are water resistant, okay? It can rain on them, you don't have to run to your truck.
Okay.
Just wipe it off when you're,
I mean, if you're hunting in an hour's worth of drizzle, no problem?
no.
Okay.
But I'll tell you what I do. Right in here. See down the sides here?
Yeah.
I roll up a sandwich bag
Oh, okay.
and stick it in there. And if I get caught in the rain, I just pull the sandwich bag
It's a
over.
great idea. Because the covers, yeah, you know,
That's all you need.
it's a great idea.
I have a friend that always tapes up the holes
The
underneath.
hole in the speaker.
Yeah, I do that.
Well, if you notice, them speakers are Mylar, they're not paper.
If it rained, got caught in the rain with it, or anything.
No harm? Okay.
What about
No.
dirt getting in there?
A what?
Dirt,
Dirt?
just turn over and
Shake it
dump
out.
huh?
Shake it out.
Yeah.
And it doesn't go into the electronics, right? It's all
No.
sealed off, it's just a
No,
speaker.
the board's sitting down here. The two boards are sitting down here.
Okay.
I'd, you know, I tell people to treat this like you treat your 52-inch TV set. Don't do anything to this you wouldn't do to your 52-inch TV set and see which one's still running after 10 years. I don't take mine up, but I wipe every time I get done with my machines. I've got an old XL Pro at home right now and an old 6000D Series 2 that look as good as this machine right here. Every time I use it, I wipe it down with a damp rag. I always use coil covers. I seal them with silicone. I wash them off when I'm done, and they just run. If you give them a little bit of care, they'll give you a lifetime of use.
Do coil covers affect the depth at all?
None.
No.
Absolutely transparent. In my opinion, especially if you're going to be hunting the beach, best investment you can buy. First time you run one of them damn old rusty nails in a piece of wood just underneath the sand, run that thing in the side of your coil and punch a hole in it.
I noticed on there the 5.3 coil is not on there.
No, it's not, and I use that on mine.
I use mine, yeah. Does that take the place
Oh,
of?
the 6
The
inch.
5.3 Eclipse is a 6-inch coil.
Okay,
It's a 6-inch concentric coil,
okay.
okay? Don't know why they called it a 5.3 Eclipse,
Right, okay.
but that's a 6-inch
It's a great,
coil.
great coil too.
Yep,
Yeah.
it is. Questions? Anything?
Just go back to the, my EMI issue 1 second here, because I describe it as a warble sound. It seems to be two different kind of problems. Or one of them has to do with water, like at the ocean, and I think, and I've tried the salt thing, and then the other one is the EMI, like I'll go over an AC power line in the ground, and it starts going blah, 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 like that, and you see all the pinpoint 3 bars or
Frequency
chattering.
offset.
And I tried to, I went up to the +5 and the -5, and that helps a little bit, but it doesn't get rid of it. Maybe there's something wrong with the machine, I don't know. But
Salt comp, did you drop into salt comp?
I tried salt comp at the ocean. Now that was a different.
Salt comp is great for canceling EMI,
Mhm.
but
Okay.
there's a certain level of EMI that no machine's going to overcome, you know?
Okay.
I mean, it's not so much frequency, it's just amplitude. I mean,
Fair enough.
there's so many that's a harmonic coil, and there's so many harmonics to that EMI. If you're around a big power distribution transformer, like at a school or something like that, that's one of the places I go to hunt.
Yeah, you crazy.
I can set Spectre up to run absolutely quiet. I can go up and touch that machine. But there's also spots where there's just tons of high tension wires that I go. And if you turn RXG up to 15 and go into pinpoint mode, you can find those wires.
Okay.
Because, you know, this one's carrying 240, this one's carrying 120, this one's carrying 5,000. This is 220, this is 60. There's just so much noise in the air that,
You pick so much of it up.
Yeah,
We have identical machines, Rob and I, and we set up the same numbers for the whole thing. His doesn't warble and mine does in the same situation, so, I don't know. There may be something going on with my machine.
check your 10
Using
inch.
different coil.
Oh, that was a different coil. Maybe.
What coil are you running?
That 5.3.
And you're running a 10 inch DD. This coil is so sensitive that, you know, if there's some EMI around, it'll find it. And if it's really bad, you may get to the point where you need to change coils. My suggestion to you is, if you want to maintain about the same performance, I prefer the 950, like comes on the M6. I prefer that over the 12 inch. I've used them both. The 12 inch is a little heavier, especially if you're going to be doing, say around, 75 or more percent coin hunting. If you're a big relic hunter, then get the 12 inch. But on the beach and a good all-around coil, that 950 is hard to beat. And this is a 10 inch and that's 9.5 inch. So all your settings for the 9.5 and the 10 inch coil will be a good swap over. When you start adding 2 inches to your coil, then you need to be thinking about changing settings. Because not only are you changing the coil size, you're changing the coil type from a DD to a concentric. Your whole coil pattern goes from here down to here. See?
Is the 9.5 inch lighter than the 10? By
About the
much?
same.
About the same.
About the same.
I noticed that this one is lighter than the DFX. Slightly, but it's surprising.
0.2 pounds, I think, something like that. That depends on which coil you have. The DFX number you saw there was with the 12 inch coil.
Okay.
Tell us about the Econo boost on there, on the sensitivity, that boost you got in there.
TX?
Transmit boost?
I mean transmit boost.
Okay, transmit boost. Transmit boost triples the output power of the transmitter. Okay, now that's a two-edged sword in itself.
Bouncing off everything down there.
Ah, but it's a good thing. Okay. Number one, Mo hotter is not necessarily Mo better. If you've got a 10 inch DD coil, just like this guy right here, the first thing you see is 10 inches worth of ground. Okay? If there's noise in that ground, whether it's an underground wire which comes through as EMI, or whether it happens to be a bunch of mineralization, ferrous, iron, or conductive, wet salt, your coil is always seeing that. The more power you put in the ground, the more ground it sees. Okay? Spectra gets its depth and its performance not from extra transmit power. It gets it from enhanced signal processing and new receiver technology. That's why I tell you, you can't compare Spectra to any other machine. It's just not fair. It's got all new parts. It's got all new programming. It's a whole new generation of processors. In fact, it's dual processors. This is written in a high-order language and compiled as opposed to written in assembly language. But at any rate, with that 10-inch DD coil or the 950 coil or even your little 6-inch 5.3, you're always seeing the ground, right? So the first thing we do is ground balance. And that sets the ground aside, makes the ground transparent, gets rid of the ground, whatever you want to say. Whatever residual noise is left takes away from your target, right? You with me so far? Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, I can't ground balance away EMI, can I?
No.
Okay, but what can I do? I can turn the sensitivity of my machine down till it doesn't see the EMI signal anymore. Then I kick transmit boost on. Did that transmit boost do anything to increase that EMI?
Oh,
But what did it do to the target return?
More signal to noise.
Wow.
So my signal to noise ratio has gone up. So now I'm using transmit boost. See, it's not intuitive to the guys like me that grew up in the old TR world where you put more noise in the ground, you got more noise back, and there was nothing to do about EMI except go somewhere else and hunt. With Spectra, you can actually turn your gain down and then triple your output power and get the same signal back as you would have received had you had your gain turned up with transmit boost off and not be in the EMI environment.
what happens with the quarters on top of the ground or near the top with that transmit boost? So don't you get a brrr on it?
An overload?
Yeah,
Not if you've turned your receiver gain down,
okay.
okay? But if you do get an overload when you're running with transmit boost on, what do? You just pick your machine up a couple of inches and swing over it again. Let me teach you the 3S rule before we quit. This is what old guys like me grew up with before we even had discriminators. Before we even had transmitter receivers, we had BFOs, beat frequency oscillators. 3S, size, shape, and sound. If you're looking for a quarter-sized object, and you go over this thing in pinpoint mode, and it's 4 inches wide. Are there any U.S. coins that are 4 inches wide?
I haven't seen one yet.
Okay. Are there any U.S. coins that are an inch wide, 6 inches long? Probably not a coin. Are there any U.S. coins that when you pass your detector over in all metal mode, it causes your threshold to dip?
Nope.
Sound, shape, and size. That's what we lived on. I actually dug less trash in those days than I do back in the 80s when discriminators were first coming out because didn't know how they worked. I knew that if that threshold dipped, it was trash. I knew if it was too big, and I knew if it wasn't round, it wasn't a coin. I knew what bullets sounded like. I knew what buckles sounded like. You had guys that grew up in the business like I did. They could tell literally a quarter from a dime. This is a quarter. This is a dime. This is a penny. Sound. So one of the recommendations I give to everybody is to learn the 3S rule and practice it. Bury a coin or two and a pull tab or two and practice with this until you can close your eyes and, number one, pinpoint until you can touch that target without looking at it. We used to teach guys in the shop to do that. Go out and pinpoint and say, okay, tell me when you're done. And I would sit there and move the coil. Click, you get the coin. Now you can pinpoint. Pick the nickel out. Pick the quarter out. And you can do it. You can absolutely do it. When you build that signal library in your head, your trash will go down, your good finds will go up, and you'll find more and more that you're using the information on the screen less and less, and you're using it as a backup. You'll hear that tone, especially with tone ID, you'll hear that tone and you'll say, that's a nickel, that's not a pull tab. You'll look down there, it'll say 20. You'll say, that's a dime, it's not a quarter. You'll look down there and it'll say 77, not 83. That's
You
how,
know where I have my trouble is with the half pull tab, where people broke the dumb things in half.
yeah,
That breeds a nickel on my machine every time.
yeah. It'll drive you nuts. There's no doubt about it. Okay, is there any questions? Anything?